Okay, I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. We'll get started. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Dual Master of Public Health and Master of Social Work webinar. So today we'll start with some welcomes. We'll talk a little bit about public health. What is social work? Why should you pursue an MPH MSW? A little bit about the dual degree curriculum, program facts, careers, a little bit of information about how to apply for the programs, and some information on how to connect with us. So before we start, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Keenan Gibbons. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Public Health Programs in the School of Public Health and Health Professions. I'm joined today by my colleague, Lauren McGowan. Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm Lauren McGowan. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions and Enrollment for the School of Social Work. Good to see you.
Fantastic. We're very lucky to have Lauren join us today on this call. So a little bit of information about public health. What is it? So it's the science of protecting and improving the health of people and communities. Oftentimes it is looking at health through a population lens as opposed to maybe an individualistic or clinical lens. We have many individuals who work in clinical backgrounds who also are trained in public health. However, the main purpose of public health is to address health issues related to larger populations as opposed to individuals on a one-by-one basis. So I'll pass it off to Lauren to speak about social work.
Yeah. So social work is an incredibly broad field. And generally speaking, similar to public health, social workers do look at wider populations. They look at what we call kind of macro level things like policy and research. But they are also looking at individuals as well. So that might be an area where social work differs a little bit from public health, is that a lot of social workers do work with individuals or possibly groups or communities, organizations as well. So there's a lot of different levels at which social workers are working, but realistically, they are all advocating for social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And really, they're working with and on behalf of vulnerable and marginalized populations in most cases. And there's a really broad range of populations that social workers work with and on behalf of. And that's really where students sort of get to customize what their interest is a little bit in terms of who they might be interested in working with, or within what kind of social justice issue they might be passionate about. But generally speaking, you're prepared to do a lot of different things as a social worker. Something that is unique about social work is that it can also lead to a clinical license. So for folks who are interested in doing counseling or clinical work, you can get a clinical license as a social worker. Social workers are actually the largest group of mental health providers in the US. So it's a really good option for people who might want that as one option, but maybe they also are interested in those bigger issues in health disparities and things like that. You do need to have an MSW degree in order to be a licensed social worker in the state of New York. So the MSW would be required as an educational requirement to get any type of social work license, whether it's a clinical license or a general practice license. So I did want to throw that out there, but it's a great, diverse, and broad field.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. So just a little bit of information to highlight our schools. Our MPH was rated number 31 by Best Grad Schools, US News, I believe last year. We are CEF accredited. We have accreditation, which some Masters of Public Health programs do not. That is a great selling point when you're looking at marketing yourself post-graduation. We also have one of the most affordable tuition rates compared to our competitors. Additional information that we like to highlight about our program is also that we have between a 99 to 100% job placement rate following graduation. So some really strong, strong strengths coming out of the School of Public Health. Lauren, would you like to speak a little bit about school social work?
Yep. So social work programs are accredited by CSWE, which is the Council for Social Work Education, and that is the national accrediting body for all social work schools in the US. So no matter what school you go to, you do want to make sure that it is CSWE accredited, like our program is, because that is really important for getting your social work licensure later on. We are ranked number 25 in the US. That's in the top 10% of all programs by US News and World Report. And this is a really great advantage of doing a dual degree specifically at UB. We have two really high quality programs and highly regarded schools here. I think there's a lot of other, universities that might have kind of one that's really strong, but we really have two incredible programs here. And so, dual degree students really get to benefit from both of those perspectives. So this is a really added benefit. And the fact that we are a state institution and that our tuition is very competitive is another huge benefit for our students.
So a little bit of information about why to pursue an MPH and MSW degree. Well, as we've kind of spoken, both degrees focus on a macro level about health concerns, be it, mental health, be it epidemiology, or community health practices. So the two programs are very compatible. Social workers are well positioned in communities, and they're accessible to patients. This means that they can be very impactful with their work. They're both growing greater in the healthcare workforce. So, as Lauren pointed out, social workers are very often mental health counselors and are a great presence in that workforce. Same thing with public health. Public health has a large presence in the mental health sphere. The need for public health workers is growing, especially since the start of COVID-19. During COVID-19, we really found out that in our area, we have, not a large enough public health workforce to match the needs of our communities. So, by pursuing an MPH and an MSW, you're well equipped to help help grow that profession in the area, and help really meet the needs of individuals who are living in the area. Additionally, by having a dual degree, you're well positioned to tackle a larger role in meeting, all of the knowledge and skills that are necessary for leadership roles in public health projects, and education at a local, state, and national level. So let's get a little bit into the course curriculum and the details of the MPH MSW combined degree. So through the dual degree curriculum, you're able to earn 2 masters in 3 years. You're able to share about 10% of your credits between the MPH and MSW. There are 2 concentration courses, two MPH concentrations that you can pursue within MSW. We'll get a little bit more into detail about that. But they allow for you to use some of your coursework for your MSW and your MPH, allowing you to decrease the number of credits that you need to take. Trauma-informed and human rights perspective is really at the heart of the curriculum. And the 2 concentrations that I mentioned before, health service and service administration, community health, and health behavior, really are a great marrying with the MSW in preparing you to work with, population health needs and projects. So just an example of some common course plans. This is community health and health behavior. You'll notice that your first year 1 and year 2, you'll choose to either take your MSW first or your MPH first. Start with your coursework, your first year of coursework. And then by year 3, you'll start to intertwine some of those courses and maybe take 1 or 2 social work courses one semester, take a couple public health courses that semester as well. But really the big thing is that you'll have to start with one degree or the other. As we'll note in the application section of our webinar, they are two different applications that you have to apply for. So just understanding that those first 2 years, your coursework and your course path and sequence are going to be separated. Just on the MPH side to highlight, a lot of year one will be focused on your foundational courses. Those courses are required to do some other additional requirements for the degree, such as your culminating project. And those will be the emphasis of year one. Lauren, would you like to speak a little bit to the MSW coursework?
Yeah, definitely. So as Keenan mentioned, you can start in either discipline. So your first year coursework, you'll do your foundation coursework in one of the programs, and then the second year will be your foundation coursework in the other school. So if you start in public health, then the second year you would be doing your foundational coursework in social work, which would include your foundation field placement. I'll talk a little bit about field placement in a minute. But there are a lot of field placement, which is an intensive internship kind of practicum hours that are required for all social work students. So that is built right into the program, and you would start that during your foundational year of social work. And then year three is, as Keenan mentioned, is the combined year of coursework where you're taking both public health and social work classes. And you do have some options in terms of electives and advanced interventions that you get to choose from. But there are some classes that are shared between both programs. Community social work and administration and management are the two specific ones that do get shared between both disciplines. So those would be classes you have to take, but you do have some room for a social work elective as well as choosing an advanced interventions. I also want to mention too that some of you may be eligible for advanced standing. So if any of you have a bachelor's degree in social work, we do have an advanced standing track for each of the dual degree programs. So I'll go over the advanced standing criteria when we talk about the application requirements, but if you meet the requirements for advanced standing because you have that BSW degree, then instead of it being a 3-year program, it would actually only be a 2-year program because instead of the year 2 foundation social work classes that you see here, it would just be 2 summer classes in between years years 1 and 3 right now, as you see pictured here. So it's a shortened program if you meet that advanced standing criteria. So I do want to mention that for those people who might have a bachelor's in social work. But like I said, we'll go over the full criteria for that later on. Most of our students aren't advanced standing students. Most of them are traditional students that have to do the 3-year program, but there are some that meet that additional criteria. So we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Great, thanks, Lauren. And just to highlight one last time, our 2 concentrations for the MPH community health and health behavior. You will notice that the concentration courses and the electives are going to be different for this than the coursework for our health service administration concentration. If you have questions about the differences between the 2 concentrations, more detailed questions about the curriculum, you can feel free to reach out to me and we kind of can figure out which path is best for you. But the health service administration is going to be more focused on, the business side, the administrative side, the policy side of public health, whereas the community health and health behavior side is going to be more focused on the community health and health behavior side of public health. So just a little bit about field placement. As an MSW student, there is a high likelihood that you will use one of your social work placements as a shared credit for your required MPH field training credit. The MPH field training in itself is 120 hours, is a 3-credit course. If you decide that you would rather be placed in the MPH field training and take, even more public health-based field training, some examples of where our students end up are clinics and hospitals, research and policy institutes, and community-based organizations and program management. Lauren, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to where the social work students end up when they choose to share their field training placement.
Yep, yeah, so the examples, so the placements that you see listed here under these different categories are examples of where we might place students for both a regular social work field placement and also if they're sharing, with the public health. So typically, most students, if they're in the traditional program, they'll be doing 2 different social work field placements for a total of 900 internship hours. For advanced standing students, they only do 1 placement, which is 480 hours. But as Kenny mentioned, most of the dual degree students are sharing, or they're doing at least one of their placements in more of a public health or healthcare type setting, because that tends to be what they're interested in. That's why they're doing the dual degree program. And so we have a lot of different agencies that we partner with. We have hundreds of agencies literally here in Western New York that we send students to for their field placements. But we do try to be intentional when we are organizing field placements for our dual degree students, that it is hopefully within an organization that makes sense for them based on the fact that they're doing a dual degree and are interested in healthcare and in public health. So we do try to be intentional about that when we're placing our dual degree students. But these are some good examples. It certainly is not the end of the list. We have a lot of agencies we partner with, but these are probably some of the most common places where you'll see dual degree students completing their field placement hours. It's a lot of great hands-on practice.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Lauren. So the last remaining component that is required for all MPH students, regardless of their concentration, is a culminating project. It's a 3-credit class that's completed in the last semester of your MPH. So all of your courses need to be done or in progress in order to enroll in this course. It is the opportunity for you to choose a topic that you're interested in. Depending upon which concentration you're in, your project type may change, but it's an opportunity for you to gain some faculty instructed guidance into creating a final paper, a portfolio, a presentation, to really exhibit your command of our core competencies, of your concentration competencies, and of all that you've learned throughout your MPH and MSW. And is an opportunity also for you to potentially publish your work. Many of our students do that. So, in terms of the final product of your MPH, the culminating project really fulfills that requirement. So I often say within MPH and MSW, you can work as many different things in many different spaces. However, some examples are, program coordinator, a program manager, director, health educator, a social service administrator, behavioral health clinician, a clinical researcher, and more. I have to say, when I was working in the field of public health, I came across many trained social workers who are working in public health. Some of them had, public health training. Some of them kind of stumbled into it, or maybe their position evolved to be a little bit more public healthy. But the two really work well in conjunction with one another to strengthen your skills, to strengthen your knowledge of how to, combat some of the population health problems and meet the population health needs that we're experiencing right now in our communities. Lauren, I don't know, do you want to speak a little bit also to, different paths for MPH and MSW students?
Sure. So the biggest thing I'll say, and the biggest advantage about getting the dual degree is that, the way I frame it is that you're probably not going to see any job descriptions that require you to have both an MPH and an MSW, right? That would be pretty rare. However, by getting both degrees, you're really expanding your skill set. And so instead of having just, the social work skill set or just the public health skill set, you're really going to get 2 different perspectives and 2 different skill sets that you can combine. And that's going to make you really competitive in terms of being an applicant to all different kinds of jobs, whether it is more of a social work position or more of a public health position. Your background and your knowledge base from that other discipline is going to make you a really unique and competitive candidate for that position that you're looking at. And so, as Keenan said, there's a lot of different types of jobs, that our students end up in. Some of them are in more kind of direct practice, social work, clinical positions, but using sort of their public health knowledge to advocate more broadly, for their clients. Others are doing things not necessarily with individuals, but more within organizations or communities and things like that. But again, using both both skill sets to accomplish their goals. So it really does, it will really position you to be a very competitive candidate no matter what type of position you are looking for when you graduate. It's going to give you even more options. They're both broad-based degrees that prepare you for a lot of things, but really with both, there's really no end to what you can do, with your degrees.
So just briefly, this is not an exhaustive list, but our students at UB have many opportunities to participate in different opportunities, societies, to go to different conferences, present their works, publish, have opportunities to pair up with faculty members to do research, learn more about interprofessional collaboration and practice through summits and different educational activities. But there's a lot of opportunities when you go to graduate school to really strengthen not only your resume but also your networking skills, your ability to command the knowledge and the skills that you already are gaining through your education. I don't know, Lauren, if you want to speak a little bit to some of the opportunities for students on the social work side.
Yeah, definitely. So as Keenan said, there's definitely opportunities outside of class to get involved and to strengthen your skills and meet people, learn more. And so in social work, we have several student groups that our students like to participate in, especially of interest to our MPH MSW students is our macro social work student network. It does focus a little bit more on those higher level issues, kind of population level stuff. So oftentimes the dual degree students are interested in that. We also have an association for Black social workers that a lot of our students are involved with. We have a student ambassador program for our social workers. We also have ROCAPA, which is our honor society for social work, as well as a lot of folks that are involved in our graduate student group. I forget what it's called. What is it called? You guys have it too, probably.
GSA?
Yes, thank you. Graduate Student Association. That's the word I was looking for. So we have a Grad Student Association as well as public health. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved if you want to outside of class to learn more and meet your fellow students. We try to make those opportunities as available as possible for folks who want to participate, but there's lots of options.
Okay, so we're going to get into the application process, but before we begin that, does anyone have any non-application related questions? You can also ask them at the end too, if you'd like to save it until then. But if anyone had any pressing questions that they want to ask right now. No? Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on to the application process. And if it comes to you, feel free to stick in the chat box or raise your hand. So as we mentioned and alluded to earlier, the MPH and the MSW are two separate application processes. If you're in the first year of your MSW or your MPH and you'd like to add on, this degree, you are able to apply to the respective application that you are looking to add on to. For the Masters of Public Health, all applications are decided through SOFAs. That's our central application system. There is a fee associated with that, as well as the UB application fee, which is attached to the graduate admissions portal. So for our domestic students applying for fall, we have an August 1st deadline. I will put a little asterisk. We have been talking about moving that back to July 15th. That will be reflected on online, but just to let you all know. But in order to apply, you must have a bachelor's degree from accredited college or university, a minimum GPA of 3.0, official transcripts, personal statements, resume, CV, and 3 references. For our international students, the application deadline will be April 1st for the fall 2025 semester. You must have the same materials that were referenced above. But in addition to that, we do require a WES evaluation for any transcript that was, or any degree that was earned outside of the US from a non-US accredited institution. WES is built into the SOFA's application, so you should be able to order it there. In addition to that, some students may be required to demonstrate English proficiency by submitting test scores. All of that information is online, including minimum scores, which tests are permissible to be taken. If you have any questions about that, you can just follow up and email me those directly. So I will pass it off to Lauren for the Masters of Social Work.
Great. So as Kina mentioned, you will fill out a separate second application for the School of Social Work, and we do use a different application system than they use for public health. So just be aware it's going to look a little bit different. And as Keenan mentioned, if you are already in either the MPH or the MSW program, as long as you're in the first year of your program, you can still apply to add on the other degree. In that case, you would only fill out the application for the degree that you haven't been admitted to yet. And if you are admitted to that program and are going to become a dual degree student, just let your original department know so that we can update our records to make sure we know that you're going to be with the other department for year 2. But for us, for the School of Social Work, our application deadline for next fall is April 1st. In terms of our prerequisites, you do have to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. We look for 24 liberal arts credits, and these come from specific categories. So we're looking for 6 credits of arts and humanities, 6 credits of social and behavioral sciences, and the other 12 credits can be any of those things plus natural science and math classes. There is a list of detailed course titles on our website, so feel free to check. We do also require a human biology or anatomy and physiology class, but you can apply without that. If you haven't taken it as part of your undergrad degree, you would just need to take it before you start your advanced social work coursework. So you can take it with us after being admitted, so you can still apply without that. And as I mentioned before, if you have a Bachelor of Social Work degree, you may qualify for advanced standing. So in order to meet those advanced standing requirements, you have to have a bachelor's degree in social work from a CSWE accredited undergraduate program. You have to have graduated within 6 years of starting our advanced standing MSW program here. You must have a 3.0 or higher overall GPA from your BSW, as well as a B- or higher in all of your social work major classes from your BSW. So if you meet all of that criteria, then you can apply for the advanced standing track. We ask right on the application, are you applying for traditional or advanced standing? So you'll just make sure you select that if you do qualify. If your undergraduate degree is in anything else other than social work, then you're going to be applying to the traditional program. You would not qualify for advanced standing. Again, don't feel bad. The majority of you are probably going to be looking at the traditional program. It's a very small subset of our students that qualify for that advanced standing track. So don't feel bad if you don't meet that criteria. Most of you are going to be looking at the traditional program. In terms of what you'll have to submit, there is an electronic application that you will log in and create an account for. And then on that application, you're going to select the MPH MSW program option on the dropdown. Like I said, you're going to indicate if you're applying for the traditional or the advanced standing track. And then we request copies of all of your transcripts. Unofficial copies are fine for the application process. We also require a personal statement, which we have specific questions and instructions for on our website. So make sure you're checking that. We require 3 references, which should be either academic or professional type references. And those reference requests are sent out directly through the system. So you'll send those all out through there. And then we also require an application fee. So that we do not require GRE scores or anything like that. So that's the good news for all of you. No standardized testing or anything, but all of that would need to be submitted. I do want to also make a quick note for all of you. So as you probably noticed, the public health deadline is much later for most students than the School of Social Work deadline. And so I want to encourage you, even though public health's deadline is later, I encourage all dual degree students to try to get their applications completed for both departments around the same time. So ideally by like March, I would say, is what you should shoot for in terms of completing both of your applications. And the reason why is because if you've been hypothetically admitted to the School of Social Work but haven't heard back from the public health school yet, we actually have to start organizing field placements for students over the summer. So if you're waiting to apply to public health in July, that's way too late for you to be deciding if you're going to attend our MSW program, because we already need to be organizing a field placement for you by then. So if you really want to be able to make an informed decision about if you want to do the dual degree here, then you really should aim to complete your applications to both programs at the same time. Or again, if you are currently in one of our programs and looking to add on the other one, Keenan, you can clarify how it works for you guys, but for us, the earlier you complete your application, the earlier you're going to receive a decision from us. So it's really going to benefit you in terms of, thinking about things like registering for classes, and getting, your class picks and everything. You really are going to want to get your application in early so that you know whether or not you've been admitted to that other department, so that you can plan ahead. And again, for public health students, like if we need to plan a field placement for you here, in social work, we need to know that ahead of time. So really make sure that you're planning ahead, make sure that you're getting your application in advance of the deadline if you can, and if possible, try to complete them around the same time. So that way you'll get a decision from each school and you'll be able to make an informed decision about whether you want to pursue our program or not. The other thing I'll say is that sometimes what happens is, because they are two separate applications and because each department gives a separate admissions decision, sometimes students will get admitted to one program, but not the other. It has happened, right? And so in that case, if you're admitted to one program and not the other, you wouldn't be a dual degree student, but you would still have a seat in the program that you were admitted to. So if you're admitted to social work and not public health, you would still have a seat in the full-time MSW program if you wanted it. You wouldn't have to apply separately for the standalone program. So we're already kind of considering you for our standalone programs as a dual degree applicant because you're already filling out our application. So hopefully that makes sense. And we would let you know, based on the outcome, kind of what your options are. But I did want to mention that.
Lauren, we have two follow-up questions. I'm actually going to do the most recent one first because there is a question about how soon after getting our admissions decision back is the deadline to commit to the program. And before Lauren responds to that, I just want to kind of echo what she is saying. And the sooner you get your application in, the better. Not only will you be decided probably quicker, but even for students who do wait until the last minute, they might run into issues of your evaluations don't come in time for us to decide you, or maybe classes are all start to fill up. Especially if you're a dual degree student, you want to make sure that you're registered in the correct classes. But so Lauren, I'll pass it over to you.
No, great addition there. So in terms of, and you can answer too for public health in terms of your deadline for deposits or decisions. So for us, it depends on how far in advance of the deadline you were admitted, or how early I would say you're admitted. So for students that are admitted, this fall semester and like early spring, we usually give them quite a bit of time to make their decision because we know they may be applying to other schools that have later deadlines, right? So typically March 1st is kind of like our deposit deadline usually for people who are applying early. For people who are applying closer to the deadline, usually we give them about 2 weeks after they receive their decision to submit their tuition deposit and make their decision about the program. But we're always happy to talk to students if they have a situation, an individual situation they want to talk to us about. If they need more time, we can certainly talk to them about it. But there does come a time, especially like I said, for social work, where we do have to cut it off because we need to plan those field placements for our students. So we can't let it go like really far into the summer. Usually by around, I would say the end of April, we really need to know if students are going to be coming so we can start that field matching process.
Yeah, on the public health side, we don't actually have a deposit that needs to be placed in. However, we will have a commitment date that needs to be made. It's probably going to be about 3 weeks after the deadline. So just be aware of that. All of that information will be published on the website as we get a little bit closer to the date. It should be up within the next month or so. And then there was another question about clarifying the human biology requirement.
Sure. Yeah. So we require that as part of your bachelor's degree, we are looking for a class that is called either human biology, or if you've taken anatomy and physiology, that would also meet the requirement. If you have not taken those two classes as part of your undergraduate degree, that is okay. Do not panic. You can still apply to the MSW program without having taken that. But if you are admitted and we see that you haven't taken it yet, you will have to take it either over the summer before you start with us, or you can even take it during your first semester of MSW coursework alongside your other MSW classes. So there's a lot of options in terms of satisfying that human biology requirement if you haven't done it already as part of your bachelor's degree, but it will not prevent you from applying to the program. So like I said, don't worry about it if you don't have it. But I do always like to mention it so that you're not surprised when we tell you you have to take it if you haven't done it already. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you need any more clarification on that. But certainly you can apply without it.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, I see a hand, Vanessa.
Hi, thank you. Um, so this is in terms of the curriculum for the MSW program. I'm interested in policy work, so I'm more or less leaning for forensic social work. Are there any classes that align in terms of forensic social work without having to go through the whole nitty-gritty of the MSW JD program?
We actually have a forensic social work elective class
That's great.
that any social work student can take. But that's a good point. So what I'll kind of expand on what you're asking, Vanessa, because I think this might apply to some other students as well. There is a little bit of, so I would say one difference between the regular MSW program and folks who are doing the dual degree is that students in the regular MSW program do have a lot more options in terms of what advanced courses they can take. So I'll put the link in the chat, but we do have a page on our website where you can see all of our advanced course options. So that includes advanced interventions, advanced topics, and elective classes. So normally MSW students have to take 1 advanced interventions, 2 advanced topics, and 3 electives for 9 credits of electives. But within that structure, you really get to choose which classes you want to take based on what's going to be most relevant to you. So we do have plenty of students in our program who are interested in more macro kind of administration management, policy type stuff. And we have other folks who are interested in more micro kind of clinical stuff, and we have options for all of them. So it's really up to you to kind of customize your social work, advance your coursework based on the populations and the issues and the type of social work you're interested in. So it is very customizable. For people that are doing the dual degree, they're usually really interested in health disparities, public health, that side of things. So they usually aren't as worried about, the lack of social work options because they're getting this whole other degree that's, in a specialized area, and that sort of is their concentration, is their other degree. But for people in the regular social work program, they have a ton of options in terms of what they want those advanced courses to be. So you certainly don't have to get a public health degree in order to do, to be a macro level social worker or to work in healthcare. But again, it would just be an additional skill set that you'd be getting, but it does have to be worth it for you. And it might not be, for everybody, depending on what you want to do. So I'll drop the link in the chat so you can see all of the advanced year course options for social work. And hopefully that'll give you a better idea of what your options are. That's a great question.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if that's all of the questions for today, thank you so much for attending. We have my contact information up on the slide as well as Tara. She is the Assistant Director for Admissions and Recruitment. She was unable to attend today, but is open to your questions. And if you have, there might be one more question. Oh, no, that's thank you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions or need help in the future.